2018 is coming to a close, and I guess I wouldn't be a video game YouTube channel if I didn't discuss my game of the year or games of the year for 2018. There were a lot of ways I could have approached this, and a lot of ways that I know a lot of different gaming outlets are going to approach this certain decision. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run through my top 4 favourite games of 2018, in order from 4th to 1st. Along the way, I'm going to talk about what I love about those games, and justify why they fall where they do on my ranking, and why I preferred some of them over others. So then the final game I discuss will be my definitive game of the year 2018. And because my opinion is of course definitive and objectively true, you're all going to want to stay tuned to find out what the objective 2018 game of the year is. First, I'm going to talk about SpiderMan PS4, and if you've seen my review, you know that I thoroughly enjoyed this game. I really did enjoy the counter-based combat system, which is something, because I never really played the Batman Arkham games, it's something that was quite new to me, and I found that really fun, and a lot of the animations during combat are super awesome and fit Spider-Man super well. And I've said it before, but the main thing that stood out to me with this game was the story. Going in, I was expecting a fantastic open world experience from Insomniac, but I wasn't really thinking too much about the story. I'm like, I'm sure it'll be good, whatever. But after playing it, I can without a doubt say that the story was my favourite part of the overall experience because of just how surprising it was. I was expecting a solid open world and I got that. I was expecting solid combat and I got that. But I wasn't expecting a fantastic story, and I got that. Therefore, it was absolutely the element of the game that surprised me the most. But it just can't be higher up on this list. It's a really solid open world game. It's full of kind of boring side activities that are just there to fill more content. The gameplay loop is nothing new. It doesn't really break any boundaries. Not that I need a game of the year to be breaking boundaries constantly, but it was because of those things that the game just failed to stand out amongst the crowd of other amazing games that came out this year. But like I said in my review, if you own a PS4 and you like open world games, you're a superhero fan, absolutely try out Spider-Man if you haven't already. Next, I want to talk about Celeste, which I played earlier in the year, right around when it came out, and it is absolutely fantastic. If you like 2D platforms at all, it is absolutely worth it. If I were to evaluate the individual elements that make up this game, I would say Celeste comes close, honestly, to being a perfect video game for what it is trying to achieve. Its platforming and mechanics are absolutely fantastic. Its controls are silky smooth, especially for me who's typically not very good at 2D platformers. The difficulty is pretty hard, but I enjoyed that because the respawn was so quick. Whenever you were to die, you'd respawn normally instantly right on the same screen immediately. You're not going through these entire levels where if you die, you go back to the start. It doesn't work like that. You're basically tackling every single platforming challenge one screen at a time. And I just really enjoyed every second with it from a gameplay perspective, but that's not to say that the story and the other elements aren't good either, because the score is absolutely awesome, and it has to be probably some of the best video game music I've ever heard. It's perfect. And the story is something that I didn't realise, honestly, that a 2D platformer could achieve. I didn't realise that a 2D platformer could have a story that was so deep and so simple at the same time. The character interactions and some of the people you come across along the way and the dialogue, it all comes together to express a clear and really special message, which is something I give it incredible credit for. A lot of outlets gave this game a perfect score, and honestly, if I were reviewing it, I would give it a 10 out of 10 as well. I think it is close to a perfect video game. I think it's a masterpiece that everyone should play if you're into the genre. And despite the high praise I'm giving it, the whole thing just wasn't quite as memorable to me as these other 2 games on the list. So here we go, number 2, my runner-up for Game of the Year, Red Dead Redemption 2. I loved Red Dead 2. I made a video talking about my problems with the game. I made that video before I beat the game, and most of those issues I had are still relevant and still stand, because a lot of the UI choices are still weird and feel outdated, and the gunplay and the overall movement mechanics are subpar to say the least. Despite those really obvious and frustrating flaws, the other things that make Red Dead great just go above and beyond in exceeding my expectations, and exceeding what any other video game that I've played has ever achieved in regards to crafting a lived-in open world and making a special story. I absolutely adore Red Dead 2's narrative. I loved Arthur Morgan as a protagonist. I loved his character arc. I loved the other characters. The acting was phenomenal. Some of the story missions are absolutely incredible. Some amazing set pieces throughout there. And the score is it's just so good. This was the first time, despite a lot of other video games having amazing main themes and scores as well, this was the first time when playing a game that I genuinely felt I was watching a Hollywood film with how the score and the soundtrack was implemented. Characters have certain themes that are played in just the right moments throughout certain missions. It's all incredibly well executed, and I can't really describe it without going into in-depth detail. The music's awesome, the story's full of incredibly memorable moments. It's just the best looking video game I've ever seen in my life, and while I don't really think graphics are the most important thing, it's unbelievable the level of detail that went into this open world. It's just a joy to ride across. It is an absolutely incredible achievement. So despite its issues, I found all of the other factors that made Red Dead 2 really fantastic will stick with me longer than Celeste will, and definitely than SpiderMan will as well. But for me, it was those gameplay issues that held it back from being my game of the year. And to shock probably absolutely no one, God of War is my game of the year for this year, mainly honestly for one simple reason, and that is the gameplay. Red Dead 2's gunplay sucked, and God of War's gameplay is absolutely phenomenal. It is honestly one of the best third-person action games I've ever played. It controls perfectly, the mechanics are awesome, especially the Leviathan axe. When you throw that thing at enemies, it feels absolutely perfect, and I've got no idea how at Sony Santa Monica they were able to make the axe feel so good, because it feels amazing to throw and to utilize in combat. The game is just a joy to play, which is something that I can't say about Red Dead Redemption 2, unfortunately. But even though the gameplay was the reason I prefer God of War over Red Dead 2, that's not to say that the other elements aren't fantastic. It's got a great score, it's got a fantastic main theme. Obviously, the characters and the performances are awesome. If you've played the game, that goes without saying. And its execution with the whole thing being one take is just... it's mind-blowing, honestly. Cory Barlog, the director, and the whole team at Sony Santa Monica just blew my expectations out of the water for God of War. I was anticipating it prior to its release simply because it's a PlayStation exclusive and I get excited for those all the time, but I was not expecting an experience quite like God of War. And the fact that it was able to give me incredible gameplay along with incredible story and fantastic characters and all that other stuff, and provide me with a super awesome, relatively linear experience as well, that's why it's my game of the year. And I honestly do overall prefer Red Dead Redemption 2's story. But where Red Dead Redemption 2 excelled in certain areas, God of War is more of a complete package. Where Red Dead 2 is lacking, God of War isn't. God of War has everything I want in a story-driven action game. And because it is that complete package, because it excels in all areas and not just a few, that is why God of War is my game of the year for 2018. Please let me know in the comments below what your favourite game of 2018 was. And as always, if you are new around here, if you've just come across this video for the first time, be sure to check out some of my other content on the channel and subscribe if you like what you see. And also feel free to harass me on how terrible my opinion is. This has been SirCazz, farewell.